In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make a flat wash. We're going to start with a dark color. I've chosen cobalt blue. Take the cobalt blue and make a nice pile of it inside your palette. Because I want to make it a little darker, I'm actually going to add a little bit of indigo to it as well. I'm going to take one of my round brushes and I'm going to create a puddle of wash. Let's get a clean one here. I'm going to start by taking my brush, putting some water inside of the puddle area of my palette, dipping my brush into the new paint and starting to create a puddle. See how I did that? It's so important in watercolor to make nice puddles of paint. It's really going to help you. It's a large space, so I'm going to really get a large amount of paint here, and then I'm going to make it a little bit darker with a little bit of indigo. See how I continually go back and forth between the water and the paint to make a nice consistency to my puddle. Now I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to test that color on the scrap paper. I'm happy with that color and I'm going to move forward. The thing about washes is you always want to create a wet piece of paper. This is one of the most important parts about watercolor, is to understand how wet to get your piece of paper. We're going to start with a Sachs watercolor brush. It's a little bit less expensive than our normal wash, but I thought it would be great for a student grade watercolor set. I'm going to dip my brush into the water. I'm going to dip out all the excess on the brush. And now I'm going to gently move that brush across the watercolor paper, getting the watercolor paper to absorb the water. Sometimes it sits on top. I'm just going to brush even more of the water into the paper and get the paper to absorb the water. Do you see how it's a little bit shinier now? That is a wet piece of watercolor paper. Let's do it one more time. Let the paper absorb the water, and then you could gently drip out the excess. Now I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to dip it in our puddle, and now I'm going to gently start at one end and work my way towards the other end. Actually going to do a little bit more paint and a little less water in that puddle. Notice how it's starting to adhere to the paper and also stay so that it moves around a bit. Cover the entire sheet. And now here's the trick. I'm going to take that sheet and gently move it back and forth like this, creating a surface that is all around the same value and the same intensity. Sometimes I might have to just dabble a little bit in the corners. And now I'm again going to keep on moving it back and forth to create a solid, flat surface. At the end, I'm going to puddle up all the excess color into one corner, and look at that. I'm dropping it on to my paper towel to get rid of all the excess. Get rid of all the excess at one corner. And there you have it, a flat watercolor wash. At this point, you could either lay it flat and let it dry by itself, or use a hair dryer to completely dry the surface and be able to move on to the next step.